This podcast is brought to you thanks to our patrons over at boardsandswords.com/Patreon. Actually, that doesn't exist. I just screwed that up. It's patreon.com/boardsandswords. Watch very closely now. 3, 2, 1. Bzow! Check that out.
We want the fun. Gotta have that fun.
Is it okay if it's okay if like when the bread touches the fries?
Do I really want to just stand still and cast a lightning bolt? No, I want to avoid you and shove a lightning bolt across.
I just crapped my alien pants. Correct. By the way, I just want to let you guys know.
You hate all of us, and we're fired.
I've released poison into the AC system. You all have about 5 minutes left to live.
So much news, like all this stuff to talk about.
No, there's been some stuff, but it was all boring.
You didn't go with C.
Well, you need to go with C.
And our friends, we combined.
You've told that story.
We combined. Have I told it on the podcast?
I'm pretty sure
you
told
have.
it.
Well, I'm telling it again.
Because I just realized as I was reading this that this game's already been done. They even made a show about it. It's called Yu-Gi-Oh! And go watch it.
This is Boards and Swords.
Hey everybody, welcome to Boards and Swords. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Chris Renshaw, and if you are seeing the video for this, you'll notice that I'm actually in studio, not alone here, and in fact, I'll go ahead and switch it. We have multiple people here. Of course, as usual, not shown on screen because it's not safe for work, is Mr. Philip Herbig.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? And I just want to let you know, I do this for you guys. I make sure all you get is my voice, and that is for you.
But in studio with me, we have Corey. So if you've listened to the Dirtbags of Holding podcast, you might recognize her, or maybe you don't. And then also down in the corner, I guess over there, is Heather, who I don't know if you've actually ever been on the channel in any shape or form. I'm trying to think of any of them. But Mike has been on sometimes, and that is Mike's wife, if you've remembered some of that. So, just to kind of, this episode is going to be a little bit normal. I know I normally put bad jokes in good folks and all this. Probably not going to be joking as much in this episode because I decided to invite these two wonderful ladies on because there's been a lot of things going on, and I needed some way to to process it, I guess, basically. And I felt like not saying something was just as bad as endorsing stuff. So to put some context on this, literally just after we podcast last time, which kind of sucks timing wise because we talked about a World of Warcraft board game coming out. The day that episode aired, also the state of California sued Activision Blizzard for a huge amount of sexual harassment and wrongdoing, unfair practices and unfair hiring issues. And it just didn't seem right not addressing it because, like, I'm a big Blizzard fan. Philip's a big, on the Activision side because, like, I talk about WoW a lot. He talks about Destiny 2 a lot. And also, the fact was, I think the real spawn of this, and we'll get to the point where I shut up, the real spawn of this is I saw a joke that somebody made, and you could tell it was sarcasm, but he said that, because there was a lot of boycotting going on, and he said that if all esports streamers boycott every place that treats women fairly, pretty soon we're going to have to go to board games. And I was like, I get the point there, and it's kind of, I get it, and it's a joke, but at the same time, even in board games, you'd have to be kind of careful as to what place you pick, because there's been several things. So I had reached out to both Corey and Heather because it was also spur of the last moment, and I didn't want to go talk to like board game women in the board game industry and be like, hey, you want to come talk about a heavy subject, and let me give you like 3 days advance notice to talk about this. And then the sad part is right as we were talking, the three of us, because Philip doesn't respond to text, so I didn't even bother including him in the message. As we were talking about it, another story broke about this woman, Gates, who I've interacted with before. She used to be involved at Leader Games, and she let out a bunch of stories about why she's not in the board game industry anymore involving some harassment stories as well. So it almost felt very timely to have the discussion of kind of talking about the treatment of women, not just in gaming, but outside of gaming as well, because anytime I try and bring it up, somebody tries to downplay it. And I wanted it to be not just me speaking, which is why I have people here. And just to say, caveat, and the idea here is just perspective. We're not going to say that, like, we're not saying that all men are evil and terrible. We're just saying that if my goal here, and things may change, there's not like I don't have a hard structure here. My goal here is to mainly listen. My goal was mainly to offer a perspective that other people might not have. It doesn't mean your perspective is bad. It just may mean you might be missing something, and you might need to just take another look at things if you find yourself not seeing these or not finding some of these hard to believe. So I think the best place to start, because since Heather is brand new on here and only like 2 people listen to the Dirtbags, and I think I'm one of them, I think it'd be a good place to start with just kind of introducing yourself. Since this is primarily a board gaming show, you talk about kind of the things you've kind of like a little summary of your history and like maybe what are your favorite styles of games, both board games and RPGs and that stuff. Yep. So I'm gonna start with Corey since she's right here.
Hi, I'm Corey. This is the sound of Corey's voice, distinct from Heather's voice and Chris's and Phil's. So let's see. I started playing games at 12. One of my neighbors introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons and also miniatures. So I started out mostly in the War of the Rings. Started going to cons and playing those kind of like con miniature games. And then I kind of fell away from gaming for a while until college, where I started playing more RPGs. Now today, board games are definitely my favorite. I haven't played an RPG in a little bit with COVID happening because I'm way too distractible to play over the internet. And I don't really do video games all that much. I love Don't Starve.
You just watch Jimmy play video games.
I do. I started from a young age being a watcher. Like I loved watching people play Paper Mario, and Gauntlet Dark Legacy. I'm a backseat gamer for sure. But yeah, so that's a little bit of my history. Heather, would you like to go?
Sure. So like I actually began life like in hanging out in video arcades. I've never been a very good video gamer. Like a lot of people, I played things like Monopoly, Clue, what's that like family game where you're supposed to like a billion kids? Yeah.
Oh Life. Yeah, where you have the car behind the car.
Yes, the car behind the car. But I didn't really get into RPGs and board games properly, I would say, until probably my mid-20s. So a little bit late, but better late than never. Met a random friend who invited me to play Dungeons and Dragons, and the rest is history. I'm primarily into RPGs, but I will play board games with you. Just if I know you and I feel comfortable losing very badly around you. Yeah, they're fun, but strategy sometimes is hard. Yeah.
It's also not helpful that most of the friends in this small knit group have like really dedicated their lives hardcore to board games. If I lose to Chris, I'm like, this is his job.
What? No.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a podcast about it. So
yeah, but
that doesn't mean I'm bad.
That doesn't mean I'm good at it.
Well, you are good at it, and when I lose to you, I don't feel bad about it. Yep. There's nowhere to go from there.
No. I feel bad now because
take the compliment.
I feel like we mostly play co-op games, maybe for that reason. Yeah. And B, I don't feel like I win that much.
Well, we played games on Friday, and Chris won both of them.
I won what? Wait, what was the second game we played?
Bullet? Oh, yeah, you won. You won both.
Oh, yeah, I did win both.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a
Awesome.
rare circumstance.
Yeah,
Because I feel like you end up winning most of the time when we play.
but you also play a lot. So when you or win a lot, and when you win, I don't feel bad about it. Is the thing.
Now that just brought down like the tone of everything.
No.
I'm just
You're
kidding.
good at games. Oh no.
Yeah.
Agree.
Hey, shout out to the people. We've got a few people in the chat, including some wives. Rusty Beetle Spouse is on. He's
Hi.
a common. He's our fact checker. Rusty Beetle's our fact checker oftentimes. So nice to see
He's
that.
also Rusty Beetle is also our Googler.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, that's why I said
Googles
fact
something
checker.
before we get there to Google it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love a good fact checker.
He's also on our Slack, the first one to ever notify us of any like bundle of holding things, because it's like as soon as I get the email, there's a notification in Slack that he's already posted there. So
Love that. What a friend.
Nice. He's plugged in.
yeah. So Heather, you did a lot of prep for this. What do you think's a good place to start?
Do we want to throw some numbers at people, Corey? Because and the reason that I suggested this in the first place is I feel like we are a very cranial bunch. I feel like some of you probably lots better at math than I am, and you know, we can talk about feelings all day, but I think facts and the weight that comes with facts might be more appealing to you, if that's fair.
Yeah.
And for those, just to say that prep that Heather did a whole bunch, because that's just how she is, of coming to with a bunch of research, digging up the facts, if you will, as she is wont to do. So there will be a bunch of links in the show notes. I'm gonna have Heather send me basically where she's pulling these from. So if you want to go and do some further reading yourself.
Nice.
Is that, Corey, is that where I should say smart?
Smart, nice.
Are we allowed to do that? Make Brooklyn Nine-Nine references?
I think so. They just announced their next season / last season. Okay.
So did a little digging around NPR this afternoon and came across a study conducted by a nonprofit called Stop Street Harassment, and basically polled a group of men and women. And the findings were that approximately 81% of women and 43% of men had experienced some form of sexual harassment during their lifetime. And when we break this down, I don't know if there's a way that you want to share this chart, Chris. It's verbal sexual harassment for women. 77% of those polled said yes, it had happened to them. Unwelcome touching, 51% of women said yes, that has happened to me. Cybersexual harassment, 41%. Being physically followed, 34%. Genital flashing, 30%. And sexual assault, 27%. So any way you slice it, these numbers are pretty dire.
Yeah. Do you know, was that, I don't want to throw you on the spot, but was that for American people?
Oh, that's a good point.
I believe it was.
Yeah.
I feel that's the only way to
but
context
it'll
it, because
be
you
weird.
start getting into a bunch of cultural issues if you start expanding it worldwide.
Yeah. I'm going to go with yes. It does. I'm pretty sure that it was an American polling group. So
That makes sense.
And I will say one thing. I am actually surprised that the number for males is as high as it is, because I imagine it could be higher, and just there's the stigma to not. I mean, I know there's a stigma
To reporting,
I
yeah.
know there's a stigma on both sides, but
There's a machismo.
yeah.
I'm actually very surprised that the following is only 30%.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising too.
That feels very low, but I am not the scientist that did that. To expound, I guess, upon what Heather's saying, when I was doing research earlier this week, I was looking more at structural issues. Like I didn't read as much hardcore data as I was reading about like women specifically in the workplace and how we try to better the situation. And there was a lot of different thoughts out there. But what I came away with was that this is a pervasive problem. It's not just a media industry or video game industry problem. It's not just an American problem. It's worldwide. And when you have something that insidious and widespread, you have to ask what is the structural underpinning that's allowing something to keep happening to so many people. And there's just like decades of treating women really shitty. Like we didn't have the ability to have bank accounts without our husbands till the 60s, and we didn't have credit afforded to us till the 70s, and you were legally allowed to assault your wife sexually until I think 75 is the first year that came up to the Supreme Court. And it was later than that you could still domestically discipline your wife. So like that's clearly not still happening today. That's a broad statement. It's not legal to do that today, but we still have like women finding it in their best interest to not speak truth to power.
Well, there's also the stat of I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like women get paid 82% cents per dollar that a male does,
and that's white women.
Yeah.
But I think that argument. So Vox did a really good piece about that called Explained for Netflix, and someone named Johnny Harris worked on it. If you want some like cool explainer videos on YouTube, he has them. But that's actually like you need a lot of context to break that down.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it's more about parents and like child rearing and women having domestic labor that men don't necessarily have. And again, that's a structural problem. Like dudes aren't expected to have to bring their kids to like their vaccinations, and like they're even expected not to do that. Like you should have someone at home to do it so that you can get promoted and still be at work. But Iceland actually had like a huge problem with their gender pay gap, and they made male what is it called, paternity leave, like you use it or lose it essentially. Like you have to use it or it's gone. And just bringing that in legally has increased or decreased their pay gap significantly.
Wow.
Yeah, because men are expected now to also take like child rearing seriously.
Right.
And it's not like a cultural issue if a dad's like, sorry, I can't be there for such and such.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, man, structural issues. So I feel like there are some individuals who suck a butt, but really it's what society is teaching us that's fucking things up.
Yeah, I reserve the right to come in with additional comments and commentary.
Yeah.
So again, my perspective is on, because I hear these things, especially in any sort of video game, and there's probably a reason why, for some reason, it hits harder, or you just hear more about it in the video game industry. It is very weird because, especially if you hear women talking about it, they're like, this happens everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but it does seem like when there's a topic in the video game space, it seems to get more attention. For instance, Riot Games has had numerous. I think as of like a couple of years ago, Ubisoft had some, and talking about, and this is where I want to bring up structural points. There are at least either the perception or maybe this is where me having no facts is probably bad, but there's the feeling that a lot of times what happens is the people that cause the problems are just kind of pressured to leave the company so that they don't bring any negative PR. And thus, since you can't just straight up fire them, most of them have like luxurious golden parachutes to kind of fall back on you. In a way, the company's kind of rewarding them for that behavior.
Or people who don't want to deal with being harassed get out.
Right. Yes, there's that too.
On that note of harassment being a problem, and you hearing about it a lot in the gaming industry, I was reading about that because I think that actually maybe something Heather sent. They said that like media companies, gaming, and like tech sector jobs tend to have higher levels of sexual harassment. Okay. And it usually, what it was broken down into is that there are very few women through the spectrum of leadership. So like you might have a lot of women lower down, but you don't have a lot of women higher in like up. The second, third, fourth levels. Whereas in like teaching or like my experiences in a lot of biology and flowers, and that's pretty lady dominated. I never had any issues in any of those jobs with harassment because there were women everywhere around me sort of setting the vibe. Not to say that women can't be harassers, because like I had a lot of internalized misogyny. I'm sure I said some really shitty stuff in my early 20s that harassed people. But yeah, having more women up and down the chain. Actually, again, very interesting fact, in Rwanda, after the Rwandan genocide, again, bringing the vibe down.
Oh, jeez.
But they had most of the, not most, but their demographics changed significantly in the 90s after the genocide, and women became 60 to 70% of their population. And so women before that didn't have jobs. They actually, in a lot of places, couldn't speak in public without a male escort. And now you didn't have men to escort you because they were dead. And so women started to have to be cops and teachers and taxi drivers. And that huge influence or influx of women into jobs, one, lowered the wage gap, and two, created a much less hostile work environment because you weren't like one woman among many men. And I'm speaking in gender binaries. I'm sorry. There are tons of people on a spectrum of gender. But speaking men and women specifically, it's a lot easier when you have more people who maybe share your experiences and look like you at work. Yay, Rwanda.
I guess part of that, circling back to talking about more about like IT and media and that sort of thing. I wonder if that's just because those industries are newer.
Yeah.
So you haven't had the time that like teaching and all these other industries have had for women to like purvey.
And I think that women have often like filled like teaching spots since like World War II. Because media is old. I don't know why there aren't more women.
Well, I meant newer media is what I'm saying there, like tech and video gaming and that sort of thing.
But like Harvey Weinstein was allowed to be a douche for a long time in an old, like a very age-old industry. So where to go from there, Phil? Are you having any thoughts?
I don't
have any.
I don't know if I have thoughts.
That makes sense. I'm not trying to pressure you. Yeah.
Phil didn't get the benefit of seeing all the PDF and stuff beforehand. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's that was that, and like I sent you that message today, Chris. I was like, that first message I sent you when I replied, that literally was a draft from Wednesday. It just sat there and I didn't hit send.
Yeah.
So like I could have been a part of this, but I was thinking about this, and victimized is the wrong word, I think. But like me personally, Philip, I'm not part of the victimized group.
Yeah.
So like I'm sitting here listening and learning. So it's like I wanna learn and then form opinions. I don't want to just pop off at the mouth, for once in my life.
On people popping off talking, someone in the chat brought up that computer programming was a woman's job until the 70s. Very cool. Ada Lovelace.
Was that
very
cool? Was that like the movie,
the hidden numbers or
Hidden Figures?
Hidden Figures.
Hidden Figures. Yes.
Yep. Women in NASA. Yeah.
I still haven't seen it, but that's just again. It's
you don't watch a lot of.
I don't watch a lot of stuff, like a lot of movies and
it's
stuff.
It's a commitment,
but
it's good,
it's on my like need to watch list.
Now that TikTok has 3-minute videos, people are posting like longer clips of movies on there. So I've seen I saw the scene where he busts down the colored women's sign on the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
And he's like this is bullshit. This is NASA. We all pee the same color.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Please make sure you do it at a bathroom closer to your desk.
And talking about structure, it's like she couldn't get her work done because she had to run across campus to pee. Like But I guess that's a good moment to also say that I am a white woman, and we're going to
Yes.
be talking about like marginalized people and issues of sexual harassment. And being a white woman, my life is significantly easier than a lot of other
that
people.
is when we're talking about perspective, everyone on this right now is white or white passing, and so there is a racial aspect that we could go delve into, but we
Yeah.
probably won't touch too much. I have something to say about that towards the end of this when
Gotcha.
we're talking about things to do moving forward.
Well, and there's also like other intersections. I'm able-bodied,
Right.
mostly neurotypical. There's a lot going on there.
Right.
Oh, reading the chat. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about personal experiences, or do you want to talk
I
about
did
something
want to
else?
get at that at some point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know, because that was one thing that was the original thought was behind this as well. You've been women at conventions, so the statistics are kind of high that
Yeah.
if someone's going to have a bad experience, one of you might have had something. So I was looking for some of that info as well.
Yeah. I guess I can
'cause
start, unless Heather, do you want to start? I've talked a lot.
I think all I was gonna say is I was gonna acknowledge that I think my experiences have on the whole been positive, but I'm only one woman. Only one woman, and I don't speak for everybody, and I can very easily see, based on the limited number of experiences I've had that have left me with a bad taste in my mouth, that it could be so much worse.
Yeah.
And we'll segue into you, Corey. Do you have any things that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah. So when you said talking about sexual harassment, I was like, "Whew, what have I like dealt with?" Because I generally feel very lucky and like not fucked with. So, but one thing did come to mind. So, and I was 13 and a child was when I went to my first cons, like I said, to
Yep.
like do miniatures, and everyone was perfectly great to me there. Yes, it was a great time just running around the dealer hall buying minis and painting them. When I was 15 was when I went to my first anime convention. And I didn't know much about anime, but my best friend liked it. So we went to Anime Mid-Atlantic. I think it was in Richmond. And my sweet, sweet mother drove us there because I couldn't drive yet. But I was dressed up as Selphie from Final Fantasy VIII. We had a friend dress up as Squall. And then my friend was Renoa. Do you know? I don't remember the name.
I only played like 10 and 12.
Gotcha. Okay. But so I got
I
there.
know what you mean. Yeah, you got it.
Sorry, what?
I was gonna say you got, yeah, those were the two like main like protagonists.
Nice.
The lovely
The love
couple
interests.
that were supposed to be in love and
Well,
stuff.
And that fits. So the two people that I went with were very much in love and adorable. And I just dressed up as Selphie because I was like, she's cute. She has nunchucks. I can make those. So a difference between 13 and 15. I was like newly pubertied. Also now very skinny because I carried a tuba around all of 9th grade and, you know, all that jazz. But I got there and immediately was just like lots of sexual attention for a 15-year-old. There were a lot of people like asking if the zipper in my dress worked because it went all the way down the front. And a lot of older dudes asking me if I liked trains.
Wait, sorry. I have to.
Yeah.
People ask
Yeah.
if your zipper worked.
Yeah, because it was like a Selphie wears like a overalls with a zipper down the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm going a why?
Yeah, exactly. So again, I was at the time young, insecure, generally loved attention. So like I was there for it, which looking back, ew. But, you know, we got to teach young people boundaries. And that I saw a tweet recently that was like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you're not old for your age or wise beyond your years. That guy's just creepy. Don't talk to him.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true. But so
No, Morgan's just cringed.
yeah. But so at this convention, I remember sitting around with a group of people and we all introduced ourselves and I told everyone that I was 15. And one of the guys was just like, jailbait, that's terrible. And I was like, what's jailbait? And now I know. And a bunch of people I feel like are going to be like, where was your mom? My mom was really sweet and she was like hanging out somewhere off to the side and let me live my 15-year-old life. But after everyone knew I was 15. Like, there were not many people at this con, and everyone that I talked to was in that original group that introduced themselves. And these guys were still constantly touching me, trying to pull me into their laps. Just too much. There was a lovely lady there who was dressed up as Irvine, also from Final Fantasy. Don't know how that happened. But a couple of these guys kept asking me to go to their hotel rooms. And I'm 15, and they know I am. And looking back, they were like in their 30s. I know they were because they Facebooked me afterwards. And a lot of my friends were like smarter than me and were like, gross, no, delete them, block them. But anyway, and so every time they'd be like, come look at my sword collection that I bought in the dealer hall, they'd be like, no, you're not going with them. You are 15 and these guys are creepy. What are you doing? Yeah, Cosplay Horror Story, I'm looking in the chat. Essentially, the story ends with getting ready for the rave. One of these creepy guys being like, hey, follow me. We're going to go like stack chairs and get ready. I work with the convention. And I was like, yeah, I love to be helpful. And then we get into a elevator and I was like, this seems suspect. This is not where the rave is. And then we end up in his hotel room. And I was like, I could jump out the window. This doesn't seem great to me. So we check out his sword collection. He attempts to make out with me. Luckily, I tell him, I'm 15, dude. Like, this is not okay. And then we just went back down to the rave where all the 30-year-olds kept randomly walking up behind all the young girls there and like grossly dancing with them. So nothing bad happened. Terrible things could have happened. And I feel like that was a great time. Not a great time. It was a good way to learn that like there are creepy people in the world, and you really need to start talking to people when they are very young about what is like what stranger danger is essentially.
Right.
Because 2 years before that, I was at a very similar convention. Nothing creepy. No one creepy. Everyone just trying to teach me more about Lord of the Rings and the Maiar and the Valar and Alu Iluvatar. And now I'm like, creepily, someone's trying to shove their tongue down my throat. So, yeah, harassment is bad.
Okay, this is where I'm going to jump in. And first of all, a couple comments. Since I don't want to make jokes about any of the situation, I'm going to take the moment because I have a contractual right to do at least one joke, and I'm going to make a joke of the fact that you are 15 and had Facebook.
Yeah.
Just shows how young you are.
Also, feel free to make jokes. I am now 30 and very okay with this. Not trauma anymore. It's more like, wow, gross people.
But something you said just reminded me of an issue I have.
Yeah.
That having, raising a daughter that's 17, going to be 18, and I'm not saying like I didn't notice stuff, and that is something that it by itself is wrong, and it's like I didn't think about it until I realized that was somebody else's daughter or something like that. That's wrong.
Yeah.
But the problem I have with her, and this is just it's also a society and issue, is trying to explain to her and just trying to figure out like what's the right way of saying like, yes, things should be like this, but they aren't.
Yeah.
Or, like when we're telling her, like she dresses a specific way, and we're like, we're not trying to be conservative and say, ooh, you shouldn't dress like that. And she's of the like, it's my body, I should dress how I want. Like, yes, we want you to feel that way. And then it's like, if I get in trouble, I can take care of myself. And like, and I also want to be like, I don't want to say that you can't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's also at the same time is, what if there's like 3 dudes? It's like, you might
be. To answer that question, like, and Heather, feel free to pop in. I don't want to like take the mic.
Chime in real quick.
Yeah.
I brought up the RAIN.org. It's the Rape and Incest Network.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what the second N stands for. I'm very sorry, but it says that younger people are at the highest risk of sexual violence. 54% of those polled were between ages 18 and 34. So that means that the majority of sexual assault victims are under 30. So very relevant to your anecdotes.
Well, it makes sense. You don't I feel like you don't have the schema mentally yet to know what you will do in a stressful situation, if that makes sense.
And also, maybe you haven't quite had the time or the how to put it,
perspective. I'll say that, at least in my own life and just how I view things, it's not until you really hit that kind of college age where you're stepping out of your previous environment and you're kind of stepping into the world and seeing the bigger picture, if you will. And it's not until you get into that a little bit that your mind frame starts to shift and like, oh, this is what the world actually is.
And until that point, you haven't, because of the way that we teach kids, our schools are very like obedience standard. And I don't think that's bad. I'm a very obedient person. It worked great for me. But you don't have to advocate for yourself, really, I think, unless you're in like a traumatic situation. But until you're in college or even later, when you have to like, you don't have anyone like teachers and parents that are watching out for you.
So
developing self-advocacy, knowing what you will and will not tolerate, and establishing those boundaries and defending them comes later in life.
How people look. So I agree that you do get more attention, people looking at you when you have the sexy clothes. But probably the scariest time that I've ever been harassed, I was in, so back up.
Okay.
I did burlesque in college, right? You can't really get much more naked than that.
Right.
So I never had harassment there, but I had a lot of harassment walking to and from rehearsals. And it was like a super queer burlesque troupe.
Okay, just a question. Sorry, just to get in clarifying stuff. When you're talking about walking to and from, you're not in your...
I am not,
Okay,
no.
You're just normal attire.
Yeah, I'm only in burlesque costumes when I'm performing. But no, that's...
I don't know enough about burlesque, so I'm just asking.
That's a very valid question. But so I was in college in my 20s. The burlesque group was run by 3 very butch lesbians, and they were so protective. They just like sprayed you with glitter, and they were like, "You're our children now." But so the scariest time I was harassed walking back from rehearsal, I was in DC. I was in like ratty sweatpants because we were doing a choreo rehearsal, and like a trench coat because it was snowing outside. And I was like, whatever, I'm like 5 blocks from the metro. I'm just going to walk by myself because that's just another tax on being a female, is having, or just a person who is marginalized, having to have someone like pick you up and drive you to the metro. I hate that. I just want to be able to walk and not spend my money. But so I was walking and a dude was on a stoop and he yelled like, "Hey, sexy." And I ignored him because that is what you're supposed to do. Don't engage because they might get violent. So I kept walking. And he said, "I'm talking to you. Hey, sexy." And I kept walking. And he left his stoop and started walking a block behind me. And I was like, I'm going to keep ignoring him. So at this point, I was only like 4 blocks from the metro. And he just kept screaming things at me, like all of the sexual things that he wanted to do to me. And then I took my phone out. And I can't call the cops. They're not going to get there within 3 blocks of the metro. But there's no one else on the street near us. It's residential. So I text my boyfriend to be like, if I die, this is why. I love you. And I'm walking because I didn't want to call because I figured if I started talking to someone, he might get even more aggressive. So I just have to like text and walk as this man is clearly walking a foot behind me just to like yell things at me and get me scared because he's not trying to flirt with me, but no one flirts by yelling lewd things at a young woman. So I finally get to the metro. There are people around now, so now he feels less able to be like powerful and mean, and he walks away, and I like go metro back to my place. And I just like, you can be wearing anything, and I don't think that being less clothed makes you more apt to harassment. It might make you more apt to people hitting on you, but I think that sexual harassment has to be intense or persistent, and most people that I've ever had hit on me that I've said no will go away. And then people who are harassing don't take no for an answer, and they're just gonna fucking do it.
So pivoting a little bit more, I'm bringing in, we've had some great comments come in on the chat.
Yeah.
So pivoting also to, we've talked a lot of general stuff, but I want to kind of hone in a little bit on things that people could see in the tabletop gaming kind of space so that people can see it and recognize it. And some of this might be considered microaggressions. I'm a little fuzzy on what that term actually consists of. But like, for instance, and this is something that I've seen a lot of, we've got Alexandra in the chat saying, I've been lucky at cons because I've always attended with a bearded husband at my side, but people have presumed that I was only there as a wife tagging along and not an RPG gamer in my own right. And this is something, if you see Facebook gaming groups, you see all the time where it's someone talks about going into a store with their husband and the person only talks to the husband and just kind of ignores the female significant other as a general term, or you see the kind of I'm trying to figure out it's a common meme, and I'm trying to figure out what the exact wording is, but it's like what I told her I spent versus what I actually spent kind of memes, where it's like, for this fee, we'll give you the receipt of what you actually told your wife. And that's sort of those types of vibes.
The unhealthy marriage memes.
Yeah. Where you're basically further. Yes, I get, and someone be like, those are just jokes. Yes, but the point of the joke is that the woman is not a gamer in her own right. Yeah. That, the woman is is outside the community sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think you're nailing what exactly a microaggression is. It could be like a backhanded compliment, something that you may not even think of as insulting, but at its core is.
Right. Yeah. And then another one, so Jameson here says, as a male, I want to chime in that he's been roofied. Because his drink was mixed up with the person he was near.
Jameson, I'm so sorry. That's bullshit.
Wow.
That he was just glad that he was the one that got it instead of her. We were there as a group, and the perpetrator must not have known it.
That sucks.
So when people say, like, I've never seen, and this is the kind of thing is I've seen, and this is something like people saying, like, and the reason we're doing this stream is I've seen the responses where people are saying, well, I don't see that, and it doesn't happen around me, so therefore it must not like that. They're not specifically saying that, but that's what they're thinking. Or when, like, the news with Gates poured it out, and she's written this diatribe on her website listing out these guys are picking it apart to be like, well, this doesn't sound right, or that doesn't sound like exactly happened. Like, this woman's writing out trauma, all right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that it's a natural human response to, like, look away from trauma.
Right.
And it's your first response, which is usually, in my opinion, a shitty response. And then you have to use your higher brain to, like, think that through.
I would argue that in the moment, if you're witnessing it, maybe on some subconscious level, you are picking up on body language, which I think is the biggest indicator of catching it when it's happening and noticing when somebody's looking uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this is like, I'm not even gonna pretend here like I'm a perfect person, because
none of us are.
Literally, well, I'm saying, like, even now, like, I'm still making these problems now because, and this is something I actually wanted to play the clip, but there was a topic. Going back to the Blizzard comment before, there's a podcast called The Angry Chicken. It's a Hearthstone podcast, but I heard somebody talking about it, and I'd listened to it before, and somebody recommended it, so I went and listened to it. It's one of their more recent ones. I'll make sure to tag that in the show notes as well. But one of the hosts is a woman, and she's talked about this stuff in the past, and specifically talking about the thing where it's like men are all shocked at these types of news, and women are more just like, well, yeah, we've been talking about it. Why are you shocked? Kind of those responses. And she was specifically talking about, like, everybody talking about doing boycotts. And, like, the problem with boycotts is all the good people leave those communities. And so what you have left are the ones that are not so good. And so I'm saying a bunch of the good points that she's saying, but the key piece that stuck with me and it really hit home because it was something I did immediately is that like for instance, when I was in I was in a chat where I saw some of these things and people breaking down what people were saying, and my response is to be like, I just don't want to be. Nope, I don't have the energy. I'm just gonna switch to a different Facebook app or whatever. When she was saying, no, engage those people, make them feel uncomfortable because those are the people we don't want, or we don't want that attitude at least. Not saying that, people can't change, but that's the attitude. That attitude needs to be made uncomfortable, and that attitude needs to be made feeling unwelcome to be here. And by not engaging, you're just letting them basically scare away the good voices in that sense.
Is this a good time to bring up the missing stare?
Ooh.
I did not get a chance to look that up, so yes, go ahead.
So a missing stare, if you think of any kind of social group and there is a dysfunctional person in it in the sense that they are problematic. Maybe dysfunctional isn't quite the right word. Somebody who makes others feel uncomfortable, somebody who may be aggressive towards people in the social group. And the missing stare is called that because everybody's kind of covering for them sort of very quietly. And if you think about like a very, very, very old house, having this one problem that you just haven't quite gotten around to fixing yet, and, hence missing stare. Like, oh, the stair's always been missing. It's always been like that. We just haven't gotten around to fixing it.
It's kind of like an elephant in the room situation.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just it's another term for the same thing. That these kind of group dynamics cover for these people who make others in the group feel uncomfortable and not safe.
There was another, and this kind of adding context for things I've heard and such. There's another podcast. Again, this was coming about from the Blizzard space, where the woman's talking about how she would run events and people would like come up behind her and hug her, and she laughs because she's uncomfortable obviously, but she's having to laugh because that's what, and this goes back to the structural piece of society has trained her that's what women do. You're not supposed to show, you're just supposed to laugh it away kind of thing. And that's where some people may be like, when women say that, well, they were enjoying it, or it was like, maybe they weren't. They were just uncomfortable and not comfortable enough saying how they really felt in a situation.
Which is hard because if you are in an employment situation, in order to sue for sexual harassment, and it's different in every state, but you have to prove that, like I said, it's intense, persistent, and unwanted. And so if you're in a situation where someone is touching you and you are, I don't know, in front of clients, like she was saying at a con, you can't, it's hard to turn around and be like, don't respect my boundaries. This is inappropriate.
Especially if there's any reason to believe that there might be consequences for you stepping up and speaking out about it. Say the aggressor is your direct supervisor. If you rat him out, what are the consequences for you?
Right.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's okay to be the perpetrator in that case, but it gives you context for why someone might not want to speak out.
Yeah. 100%. I was just reading the chat. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Trust me. Any of these little awkward pauses get removed for the audio, so it's just the video that'll have those.
But again, I feel like it's hard. I don't want to be super what's the word it's okay. I feel like we also have a problem with abusers sometimes not understanding body language. I think that there are a lot of guys out there who don't know that running up behind a woman and hugging her isn't always wanted.
I would just say people. I wouldn't even say abusers.
I thought you were going to say people, not just men.
No, I was just going to say people not understanding body language.
Yeah.
Because you could have the flip side where someone might not be able to tell that a woman's uncomfortable, like an outside, like somebody's being harassed,
Yeah.
but an outsider to that in between that reaction might not understand because they can't tell from the woman of that she's uncomfortable, therefore can't step in to say, hey, knock that off or whatever.
And I think someone in the chat earlier brought up the fight, flight, or freeze response, which I think fits in this situation a lot. Because if you can't fight someone in the middle of a con, you can't leave. And so if you don't feel like you can tell someone no, because maybe they're your supervisor, what do you do? And what do? You teach people not to touch people without express consent.
So I will say, when we were talking about examples, there's another instance. You brought it up in the chat that you didn't bring up in here.
Okay.
Where there was one that we actually have on tape somewhere.
Yeah.
of the time we ran the RPG with the guest GM, and there was a bunch of comments.
I've never felt more like dude protective energy.
But the
than
problem
was
it was all like passive.
It was so passive
because like all of us were like, because he kept having the guy that was having it, he kept having internet connections. So anytime I would hit mute for like the entire group, and we'd just all be like, what the fuck? Like, seriously? But none of us actually ever said it because there was enough issues already having there. And
so to give everyone context, I'm not going to name names, but we played a game. It was very tech heavy. There were a lot of guns. I don't know guns. I've never played the kill zones. And so we had one gun, I think. And I asked him I said, I'm going to use this for this. And he wasn't happy with that.
You didn't use like the full gun description or something like that. There was also another.
You didn't bust out with the full guns. Like, this is the Omicron Persei 8 12 millimeter automatic full shotgun.
Yeah. And so
you didn't say that. And he was, that was what torqued him off.
And he said something with sweetheart in it. And I saw Phil's face.
He kept going sweetheart and honey. And I just kept like, and Corey was right. She could see it in my face of like, I immediately do not like this person. If he was on fire and I had water, I would drink it. Okay.
What is I'm thinking a very inappropriate thing, but from The Office, where he's like, Toby, if you, Osama bin Laden, and someone else terrible, Hitler, were in a room and I had 2 bullets, I would shoot Toby twice. Sorry, everyone. That moment, but yeah.
Well, there's also, because it wasn't even like, that's one extreme, but there was also like some treatment of like, as if you were a new gamer kind of statements of like listen, this
there was all that stuff, and it's
like this girl's got more has some pedigrees even more than the rest of us.
I think though that I get that a lot, not so much because I'm a woman, but because I am not afraid to ask questions a lot, and I think it makes me sound like an idiot sometimes. But I
an excuse for people to talk down to you.
Yeah.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
And then we're getting like one of us, and like looking back on it now, oh yeah, I would have said something. No, right there in that moment, somebody on a microphone should have called him out for that.
And I think there was one point we did, but it was also like as a joke, but like especially like when the gatekeeping piece came up and he said something. I think one of us was like half-heartedly was like, dude, she's been gaming almost longer than the rest of us. I think there was that.
We did. Again, one of us popped in. We were like, he was like, oh, do you even know how to do? I'm like, she runs our D&D nights every Friday. So
thanks, guys. Well, I appreciated it. I mean, I didn't feel that. It didn't immediately offend me until you guys were offended for me. And then I was like, wait, I am offended. Yeah.
But again, it's not, and the idea is not to, and the way to think about it is not to say protect. We're saying these things to protect Corey. The idea is to get across to the person of, that's wrong. You shouldn't be treating people, not necessarily, you shouldn't be treating people like that.
Yeah. And I think what Phil was saying about like someone should have gotten on a mic while I was reading stuff online, one of the things that kept coming up and up again was you should think about these situations and how you would want to react to them before they happen. Because when you're stressed out, you very rarely say the things you want to say with the tone you want to say them.
There's always that, oh man,
Yeah.
I wish I had thought of that back then.
And you can't plan everything out, but like there are some that, like, we were on your stream once, and I remember that someone said something sexist.
Oh yeah, I think we had a troll come in
Yeah.
and just say something like, and
remember
I've
what it
seen
was.
this. I've seen this with when Cindy was on. We'd occasionally have a troll come in and be like, sexist remark here
Yeah.
or there, and I'm quick to go to the ban hammer, and
Yeah.
that's why I usually keep those pages open so I can just quickly do that. But yeah, that has happened.
And I'm an idiot again. I hope that's not ableist language. But anyway, I had heard a bunch of people make like good slapbacks lately. I was reading a lot of Jamila Jamil tweets. So I was like, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to slap back. I don't remember what I said. It was something about like my boyfriend being in the room, which is absolutely just a like nosedive, not a good comeback. So I think that either having responses that are good clapbacks on hand or not engaging the trolls is good, but you should plan your clapbacks.
So
And even just something as simple as I'm a big fan of advice columns. Plug Carolyn Hacks and Captain Awkward. They're great resources. But one of the stock responses that Carolyn Hacks will advise people to use is just, wow. Like, wow, really? You
Owen
just
Wilson.
said that? And
Oh.
anybody with an ounce of shame in their body might respond to that. But if you have no shame,
Yeah.
you're not inclined
I've seen
hear.
one. I've seen another tactic going along with that, whereas play the idiot. Where if somebody makes and this actually goes for both racism and sexism, where like somebody makes a joke or like say for instance, somebody makes a comment about you just being tagging along, you play the idiot and be like, why is that funny?
Why is that funny?
Like serious stuff. Like don't make it sound like you're being sarcastic. Be like, I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
To make them kind of explain their sexist and explain their sexism to the point where it's all about making them like putting the uncomfortableness on them as opposed to making somebody else uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Where, so that was, and I love that. I haven't really gotten a chance to use that because, of course, we've all been inside for COVID stuff. But it was I saw that. I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
It's super good. I think you have to be willing to do confrontation to make that one work.
And that is something that's coming up in the chat room,
Yeah.
Miss P. Like confronting people is a big problem because there's the social stigma and just, there are a lot of introverts in these kind of nerdy spaces. Heather's literally wearing a shirt that says introverted but willing to talk about or to discuss books.
Right, that's
So you have people that it may not be in their nature to engage.
Yeah. But there are some people who change.
Right.
I know that like I said, I had a lot of internalized misogyny, and I once got in a big fight with one of my friends in college because she kept saying all men suck. And I was like, not all men suck. Don't be a misandrist. You're ruining the feminist movement. And I kept saying, I have a twin brother and he's great. And one day we were arguing about it, and I am not a big crier. I've cried in front of my husband, who I've been with for 13 years, like 4 times. And I just started bawling in a hallway next to her, like, why don't you understand that you say all men suck? And now I understand that it's palliative. Is it the best thing? No, but I shouldn't. It's not my place to take that argument away from her if she wants to tweet it.
And I think we're getting close to coming around to solutions. But I just want to say, Heather, did you have any other, both either experienced or things you've seen kind of like at a convention or in a gaming space, other examples? I'm trying to give a lot of examples so people can know what to look for. So, somebody that may not have seen something that knows that sees something goes, oh, that might be something that person doesn't want.
Actually, yes. I did kind of want to tack on to what Corey said about it doesn't really matter what you wear, how you're presenting at the moment. If somebody wants to come at you, they're going to do it no matter what you're wearing. And that has been my primary beef with cons more than anything else. And I have cosplayed too, and I've been really fortunate to not be in a lot of hairy situations, knock on wood. I have had men aggressively try to engage me in conversation, and I have tried as best as possible to communicate with body language, turning away, not making eye contact, and getting very aggressive. Hey, I'm talking to you. And, feeling that cold, like, chill down my spine and being like, you know what? I think I have somewhere else to be. I don't think I need to go into the dealer's hall right now.
Yeah.
And, as a woman who goes to cons now with her husband, those instances are few and far between, but the fact that they happen at all is unacceptable still.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to have my husband next to me like a guard dog to feel safe.
Yeah, and that's something you'll see, and that's something that I'm hoping more people are doing, is making sure that cons have a code of conduct that is posted. The fact that you need one says a lot, but the fact is that it's not common sense to someone. Like Rustabito posts is cosplay. Like the common verbiage is cosplay is not consent.
Yeah.
And making sure, like you're talking about minor introverted things that people can do, just putting in a request to say, hey, can you do you have a code of conduct? Could you please post it? That sort of thing. That's simple. That's something that's simple, so that can somebody say like, oh, I didn't know that was here. You could be like, read the sign.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I know, and there's and this is where I could go off. Like it I knew it would be better, and I'm actually glad because you two, there I go again. So guys, you two have brought both additional things that I didn't even think about, and that's why I was like, oh, I'm just getting
perspective.
Well, it was also, oh, I think I'm just getting, the closest gaming women next to me to come on here. But no, you both almost were perfect for this, and the different kinds of perspectives that you bring. But even just myself, I personally may not have experienced these, but I listen, and some women know that.
Yeah.
So I've had the people tell me stories.
Yeah.
Like lots and lots of stories to, like, I could have done this whole podcast by myself, just if I had permission and time to ask people, be like, can I share this story or can I share that story? Or people are saying like, I won't say names or anything. I'll generalize of, women chased off of social media because commenters and people going at them for wrong opinions, and not necessarily wrong opinions, but, and this is where people are like, well, they just need to have a tougher skin. The difference is you got to ask yourself, would those people have said the exact same thing if they were a man?
Yeah.
And it's not just a where you see things, it's like lewd comments and lewd things, to just some women that just get to the point where it's like, it's just not worth it. So they may have a podcast that shuts down, that, they were doing a great show and people were enjoying it, and now they aren't able to share that gift with people because somebody, like a small group of people, were assholes.
Yeah.
I've also had her testimony of, somebody had you hear about like relationships in the workforce, and then they broke off, and this is in the game. I'm talking in gaming workplaces, that they broke it off and the other person didn't like it, so they actively
tried to harm their job and career prospects.
Even though they weren't even working at that same company, they were working for trying to hurt future prospects. And not even just like from a male point of view of like getting their new girlfriend to attack the other girl in like rally people, because as it seems less sexist if a woman is attacking another woman and rallying people versus if a man is doing it.
That sounds like that whole Holly Conrad, that trio problem. No one knows what I'm talking about. That's a cosplay world problem with people, very dirty breakups.
And
Anyway.
like, I'm not talking hypotheticals here. I'm
Yeah.
simplifying things because I don't have dates, or I don't have dates, names, and necessarily permissions. I'm just saying, like, these are actual examples. Like I said, if you go, I'm going to put a bunch of different, anytime like you've seen these women that have posted stuff, I'm going to put as many of them as I can in there. There's even examples where women have said no, like they've been explicit, and the guy just continues and just ignores that in general and is still trying to have, and people saying like it should be made, well, she didn't make it clear enough. Well, it's like,
I think that on that note, on people persistently coming after women, I think that the response a lot to people talking about workplace harassment is guys and gals and non-binary people who disagree and are skeptical, saying, well, now I can't flirt with anyone, like now I can't talk to anyone, now I'm scared. And you know what, like, I don't want to tell you that you're ridiculous for being scared, but I think that it's not ridiculously hard to keep yourself safe from someone saying you're harassing them. Like if someone tells you no once, this isn't a Twilight situation. This isn't a romantic comedy situation. One time no is a no. And most women that I know, if you say no once, it's awkward, but then it's done. And like, we get it if you want to ask us out once. That's just like, you got to take what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. I'm not gonna be mad at begrudge you one shot. It's when you start doing things that are creepy, like persistently asking people out, stalking your social media, doing, like, you were talking about something earlier that is also very like job retaliation. Those kinds of things are bad, and they're bad. I feel like in your heart of hearts there are some things that people are oblivious to. I'm hoping that you can apologize those away. If you can't, I feel like that's a pretty special situation, and I'm sorry. But most of the time, I feel like you can figure it out, like mark it out.
Yeah, and that comes back to I don't like, or that's been a new thing, and I feel like it's hard for me because also I'm married now, so therefore like all of it's kind of off the table because that's not the kind of relationship I have / or want. Or so, but I hate the like, oh, I can't flirt with anybody now. There's flirting, there's harassment. Like, there's the but also the idea of, well, I can't flirt with anybody now also feels like there's an undertone of, well, I just see women as fuckable objects.
Yeah, like you're entitled to flirting.
Yeah, like, so that's almost a problem in and of itself, where it's like, you can be nice and friendly without sexually harassing somebody, and maybe not just treating them as people, not as objects. And then if something happens, she'll make it known, or they'll make it known.
On a completely different note, have you ever seen the meme of Morpheus? And it's like, friend zone. What if I told you that women aren't like objects that you put or kindness tokens into until they fuck you?
Yeah.
Great meme.
I've seen similar ones.
Actually, I feel like that actually might be a Sylvia Plath quote. Rusted Beetle, I'm relying on you. Do you want to Google it?
Got some other.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say other perspectives in the chat. James was talking about he volunteers with True Dungeon. There's a strict policy of no touching of or by volunteers is there for a reason, and is taken seriously, especially with the costumes that are worn there. Talking about, again, that cosplay is not consent piece. So, sorry, Heather, were you saying something?
She's talking about Sylvia Plath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe she had, or a quote is attributed to her along similar lines that that women are not, like machines that you just put things into. Kindness, favors into, and sex pops out, is basically more or less the quote.
Gotta love her.
Yeah.
And so I think we've spent enough time talking about the problem.
Yeah.
And we've identified. So now it's kind of time to wrap things up by doing the actionable items. What can we do? And this is where I'm going to step in because this is like what I've been doing. And there's a couple of things you need to ask yourself. If you are a male and all of these things are extremely surprising to you, and you're saying to yourself, well, I've never had women come to me and tell me that, or I've never experienced it, ask yourself why.
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself, and this is something else where to expand upon the larger point of, well, I don't see it at my gaming table. Well, does your gaming table have women?
That's a good question.
So, or you know,
so.
like, well, we don't really have a lot of women at our we don't really have a lot of women at our game shop. Why? Is your game shop creating an atmosphere that women don't want to be at?
Yeah.
Because they can sense that it's a bad environment. You may not feel it, but there might be something there. You have like maybe one or two problem people that are ruining it, you know, for everybody.
And maybe not even bad, just not welcoming.
Right.
Like, yeah.
And
Like,
so,
sorry, I was just going to say, like, if, you know, say a woman like Corey walks in and does not know the gun lingo and is genuinely asking questions, are you talking down to her? Are
Right.
you
Yeah.
making her feel stupid? You know, that's another example of it. It may not be sexual. It may be that you're putting people down and therefore not making them feel welcome.
and that's the gatekeeping is kind of wrapped
Yep.
up into this as well. Yeah.
Oh, gatekeeping. We could do a whole podcast.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
all the same kind of it would almost be the same.
Yeah.
There's so many
Mhm.
parts of this that's, you know, also the gatekeeping. And this is and the reason I said I was going to come back to the race piece, and this is something that I say where it's something I've noticed, and the questions especially after last year when we had so much attention on, you know, with George Floyd and all the protests and Black Lives Matter and everything, is something I've noticed was like, well, I don't game with a lot of people that aren't white.
Yeah.
That's something I need to work on. And then the problem is we went into Corona, so like I had ideas, and then
Yeah.
it's like, well, I'm not hanging out with anybody. But that is something that I've identified with me personally that I need to do is, you know what? My circle of friends doesn't include, and I'm not trying to say that it's like
You're not trying to tokenize people.
I'm not trying to tokenize, and it's
Yeah.
not an affirmative action thing where I need so many women and I need
Yeah.
I need a black friend and I need that.
You're not
No,
making
it's-
a menagerie.
No, it's just that they're different types of people that might be just as fun to hang out with,
Yeah.
and different perspectives that. And this is why even though I may not play a game that say like there's a bunch of creators that may not, but having diverse creators, even if they're games I don't want to play, are awesome because it's something new that maybe I don't
Yeah.
want to play it, but maybe there's somebody that isn't attracted to all the Mediterranean farming and
Yeah.
farming in the Mediterranean games that are going around, that they wouldn't play games because that circle or that piece of the pie wasn't getting hit.
Bringing it back to making friends, I feel like as an adult, back when we were saying that dating is a bit of a minefield for harassment, making new friends in different friend groups is another moment where you have to be like, okay, let me not do microaggressions. I feel like it's very hard to make friends as an adult because you don't want to put your foot in your mouth, which I do all the time.
Friendships are dynamic too. From my personal experience, I recently had a friend tell me that they identify as non-binary, and doing my darndest to not misgender them.
Mhm.
You know,
I've had
it's-
that, yeah, I've had that happen, or I've had people that have changed names and trying not to refer to them as their old name.
Yeah.
Or you've seen it in this episode where my tendency is to say guys.
Yeah.
It's stupid and small, but it's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see I specifically like to go with folks or y'all.
Cheese
That's
puffs.
like the best that's like the one wholesome Southern thing is that you can use y'all for so many things and it's
Yeah.
not offensive to anybody.
Did you guys see the BuzzFeed article that was like different ways to address rooms of people that aren't gendered? And it was like, "What's up, rat bastards?" And my favorite was just a picture of cheese puffs that said, "Stay warm, cheese puffs."
I love it. I would love to be called a cheese puff.
Oh, same, 100%.
Phil, are you there? What do you think about "Hey, you wonderful cheese puffs"?
It depends on the brand. You got to be Utz cheese puffs because they are the best.
What about cheesy poofs?
Cheesy poofs.
Oh gosh, we could go. That's probably not a good tangent to go on
Oh,
to.
South Park,
Yeah.
whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
Book of Mormon, another episode. It's just me and Heather singing the Book of Mormon.
Hello.
So I will pass again to here soon, but I'm just things that I've been thinking about and saying. Things that you can do when you're in the I already said the thing about playing the idiot, letting people dig their own holes. That's one thing. But there's other things like if you see, and I'm speaking from the male point of view, if you see, say, because what is also in common is people flirting or getting too comfortable around female workers at a booth.
Yeah,
Because this is a big problem because
they're paid to be nice to you.
they're paid to be nice to you, but there's also they can't be mean. They can't really be mean because they want you to spend. You know, they're trying to get you to spend money. So that if they like yell at you, that could be not only seen bad as on them as an employee, but also other people are like, well, that person's mean. I'm not going to shop here.
Yeah.
So they feel kind of forced to be nice, even if it's uncomfortable. Interrupt by just asking be the interrupter and say like, hey, can you tell me about this game? Even that it may be a game you already know everything about, but just to like
Bring them to the other side of the table.
yeah, be like, hey, there's nobody around here. Could you show me how this game plays or
Yeah.
something, just to get their attention? You're not really having to engage the harasser, but you're pulling that string of, hey, let me get, like, I don't know what the right word is here.
Breaking the tension in the situation by kind of
Giving her
diverting
an
it.
out. That's
Yeah.
you're giving them an out.
I saw
Yes.
there's something very similar in that vein a while back. I don't remember what country it was. It's not America. They were having a lot of problem with people throwing acid on Muslim women, which is, again, bring that up.
Wow.
But people said one of the important things to do if you see someone being harassed in that situation is to just walk up to the person being harassed and be like, I like your watch. Hi, my name's Corey. What are you up to? And it shows that there's someone in the room who is an ally who's sitting next to them.
Right.
And it does put you in danger, but a lot of the time, someone seeing that there's more than one person, like there's a group now, might back off. And if you break the bystander effect and you walk up to someone and start helping, it invites other people to do the same.
Yeah, Alexander brings up the having booth babes, and that is one trend that I'm kind of glad we're not. It seems to be kind of filtering out of the hobby
Yeah.
because a lot of cons will specifically say like we have a no booth babe policy. So but we are just talking about the fact that companies will have women, and you go back. It goes back to the it doesn't matter what you wear kind
Yeah.
of thing where. They could be in their company polos, and some dude is just like
Yeah.
all over. Some person is all over them.
I would have to look into it more. I feel like booth babes are probably, like, do they sell more merchandise? I don't know. And I wonder how harassed they are, what amount of time they spend just talking to people who don't spend any money. The end. That was the whole thought. Yeah.
And other things is, if you do have a group of female friends and people that you know, letting them know, like there are several people, like I've said to some women, I've DM'd them and be like, hey, look, because especially there was a couple people that they were getting some heat on them. So like I DM people being like, here's my cell number. You don't need to give me yours, but just so you have it in case if you need something,
Yeah.
just text me, say it's you, and I can come there.
I'll be there.
Yeah. Like, again, the expectation of, hey, what's your number? Like, no, it's just if you need something and you can't get a hold of somebody, just letting people know that to reach out to you.
Yeah.
You're not really, you're not preventing, but you're at least keeping someone from having a bad convention.
Yeah. On a completely more minor note, on microaggressions, I don't know why this popped into my head.
Oh no.
Another way to be like a real good guy friend. I feel like a lot of the time women will say things in meetings or in like a board game group or on a DM level. Maybe if you're playing a board game and an RPG and you suggest something and then no one's listening, and then all of a sudden the person sitting next to you says it and everyone's like, great idea. Really great if you're another person at the table and it's like, yeah, they said it first. Because it opens everyone's ears up.
Acknowledging the...
Yeah, I feel like it happens a lot to people. And it's might not even be women. I feel like there are a lot of quiet speaking dudes that I know who say things and no one's listening.
Right.
But be that
Even
friend.
take it a step further, and you could go back to that person and be like, hey, do you want to say that again a little bit louder for everybody?
Yeah.
I'm interested in what you have to say.
That's a good idea. Say it again. I don't think they heard you. Or...
You're brilliant, Heather.
Thanks, friend.
I am usually that because I'm usually the loudmouth.
One other thing. If you hear someone saying something egregious in your friend group, and it is in your friend group, it's laughed about, but it makes you uncomfortable. I feel like for me, you can call it out right away, but I've found that I've had better success talking to people in private afterwards.
Well, they don't feel confronted.
Yeah, because then it's immediately a fight. And like, I never want to fight with my friends. I want consensus building with my friends. And just to say like, hey, look, I don't want to fight you on this, but it did make me uncomfortable. And here's why. And I would love to like hear what you have to say and then get to the middle. And you can't always do that with people who aren't your friends. Sometimes there are jerks in the world and you just have to tell them to pound salt. But yeah, think about
that. And that's another thing that you just reminded me of, is the other thing is, if you happen to be in a situation where you get called out, don't get defensive.
It's so
again hard. You might not have even realized that you said something, and just be like, oh, my bad.
Yeah.
And this also goes back to when you're talking about like this applies to several situations, talking about misgendering people, or you don't need to, no one's gonna murder you or cancel you because you used the wrong name or used the wrong, especially if you didn't know. Maybe if you did it multiple times knowingly.
Then you're a jerk.
Yeah. But like, if someone points out, like say you get pointed out for a microaggression or something like that, just owning up to it and be like, my bad. I'll try and do it. I'll try and be better.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all they want to hear. Literally, is that you will try and put some effort in next time.
Yeah. And it's also hard to call you out. So like,
yeah,
think about that too. Say thanks for telling me that I did something wrong. Now I won't put my foot in my mouth again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Won't put my foot in my mouth again in that specific manner.
Yeah. There's only one reason.
I'll take that shoe off and I'll put another shoe into my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only do that on my OnlyFans.
I made a funny joke the other day that it was like, back in my day, we had OnlyFans. That was only for the ceiling fans.
Oh, no.
That was my store, and we liked it. Chloe lost it.
Oh.
She loves my old man voice.
As a home decor lover, I would love a store full of ceiling fans, because there are a lot of ugly ceiling fans. There are not a lot of cute ones, so.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
If I may, I kind of want to circle back to confrontation at the gaming table and ways that you both think are helpful to diffuse a situation that's getting tense, where a person is actively being singled out either by the GM or another player. What do you think is the best way to approach
jokes? That? Number one default response is for me to make a joke. That is my go-to response, because if you can get people laughing, it removes the tension in the room. And usually it's a self-defacing joke. like pointing out something about yourself, and making a joke about yourself could just like break that tense situation.
I don't have a good answer for you, Heather. I found that I was playing a Dune board game recently that the rules are terribly written. They are the worst. I've played this game with friends 3 times, and every time there's been some minute rule that someone's missed, and it's like messed up the whole calculus of the game. And I remember last time I got in an argument with someone about the rules, which makes me sad. Like, why fight about rules? But I was convinced a rule should be read one way. He was convinced it should be read the other way. We read all of the Board Game Geeks stuff, and some people said you got to do it this way. Game developer said this is the way this rule should be read, and then play testers were like, no, that's not the way we played it. And so I just ended up saying, guys, this is a game and we should be having fun. Let's have fun. And then no one really had fun, and the game still went on for another 2 hours because it was fucking Dune. So yeah.
So you don't recommend it, is what you're saying? The Dune game.
Until they write a new rule book, no.
Fair. Noted.
But maybe they'll make a new one because Timothée Chalamet and Jason Momoa.
Well, they've made a couple of different. Dune has made it. You're talking about the
this
original.
This is the OG that they reskinned.
Yeah. There's a new Dune Imperium game that's gotten a lot of good buzz. Rusty Beetle brought up a good counter argument to my point, whereas joking can undermine the seriousness of the situation.
Yeah.
Again, very good point. I'm not talking about the end all be all. I'm only talking about just
light tension.
It's that providing an out kind of situation of, hey, look at me over here.
Yeah.
To just kind of like break the kind of, because it gets into that where somebody, like when 2 people are having that kind of tension where it's like or like the person being the aggressor kind of zones out that anybody else is anybody else is out, and they're kind of laser focused. So me kind of like making a bad joke is just kind of breaking that and reminding them of, hey, remember there are 7 other of us here.
Yeah.
Do you think it could be worth, obviously, we haven't really talked, have you covered X cards in the past? Like, even if you're not the person who's the target being like, I don't like this, I'm going to slide my X card onto the table.
You know what? I've actually X carded stuff on the podcast. Like, if we start, I've done that where it's like if Philip or I or a guest or somebody ventures into something that I think might be uncomfortable or something that might lead us down a dangerous, like, you know what, we're going to just X card that and we're just going to go to something else. I think it happened in a Dirtbags podcast. I don't know if I cut the actual bit out, but there was somebody did an action and I was like, oh,
that's not great.
If we were playing a home game, this would be fine unless somebody else had a problem, but this is going out to anyone on the internet, so I'm going to X card this just to...
I think I remember that. I don't know if this would work. I've never done this, but I would be afraid that I would start infantilizing the group, which is what would make me nervous to do this. But I do think that sometimes it's worth it to be like, hey, guys, I know we're all arguing and we're all grown-ups, so I don't want to tell you what to do, but maybe we should take a break for a couple minutes. I have ice cream in my fridge because I always have ice cream in my fridge. Maybe we all just like take a deep breath and come back. I don't know if it would work, if I'm honest, but I think it would be worth trying.
Fun fact, I think ice cream is the only thing in Corey's fridge.
Yeah.
We opened up her freezer because you do a lot of fresh cooking. So it's like we opened up your freezer. It's like, there's only ice cream in here.
Oh, sounds correct. All I eat is ice cream.
That's another fair point. There's no one good response to everything, says Rusted Beetle, and no one will always have the best response or reaction. Keep up the discussion and keep an open and empathetic dialogue. Yeah. And that just circles back to just treat people as people.
Yeah.
And and this is where it comes back to thinking about situations and how you could respond to them so that you've got those arrows in your quiver.
And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've had less sit down, think about things time since the advent of podcasts and like constant a million new shows on Netflix. And like my brain is constantly getting some sort of input. And it wasn't until like maybe 6 months ago that I started on purpose going on drives where I only listened to like instrumental music and was like, you're thinking. You're
Yeah.
going to have just thoughts. Because I think it's worth it. That's when you have thoughts about like how to avoid conflict or good arguments that you should have had with someone.
That's why people have ideas in the shower.
Yeah.
For that same
But I
reason.
listen to podcasts in the shower.
Mhm.
So ruins it.
I was gonna say, Chris, you're right about shower thoughts. It's kind of our last haven for boredom, and that sort of vacuum that being in the shower creates means that you get great ideas
Yeah.
in that space of time.
So you asked the question, Heather, but did you have any comments about it as well as far as reactions?
I mean, my first thought was like call a bio break. Like everybody get up, use the bathroom if you need to, have an ice cream, just so that maybe you at least as the bystander can approach the person who's being targeted and be like, hey, are you okay? What do you need from me in this moment? And maybe in some ways that's putting too much responsibility on a victim. But if they feel comfortable, it might be a good question to ask to see like how could you be a good ally for them in this moment?
Yeah. And they also know that you have their back then.
And that you saw it. And sometimes that's huge. The fact that you're like, hey, I saw you get uncomfortable and what happened was not okay.
Yeah.
So
Should we ask Phil? Phil, do you have any responses to people fighting in front of you?
So this has happened at our table.
Yeah, it has. I was
we were a part of it, and we all kind of just shut down.
Wasn't
Not
the best
saying
response.
that was the response that was supposed to happen, but it was more of a you hear people talk about like watching a car crash.
Yeah.
And like
train wreck in slow motion.
Yeah, like we just watched this happen right in front of us. What do? Nobody did anything until we're like, okay, all right, this is over. Good game. We're going home.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
And again, full transparency, like I've done this literally to Corey within the past year, where we were playing Arkham on tabletop, and there was like some rule that we were like, I was reading it one way and you were reading another.
Very
and for
believable.
whatever reason, I don't know, it could have been other outside effects. Like I was getting heated, like, or it was just I don't understand. Like this is very clear
You're
to
like,
me.
I don't understand why you don't understand.
Yeah, I don't.
I think that similarly to you, I get very frustrated when I don't have the full scope of the rules, and I go from 0 to 10 when I'm like, I just need to know everything so that I can know this one thing. And so give me half an hour so that I can read all of the rules. And that's not helpful to anyone.
Yeah, and I think it was like, I think literally it was you saying like, okay, well, it's just a game that kind of snapped me out to be like, and then afterwards like, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. I did not mean.
Yeah, no. And again, we're friends. So I feel like I know you enough to know that you're not calling me stupid or trying to like mansplain a rule to me. I probably I don't know Arkham as well as you. So yeah, I feel like it's different for different friend groups.
And that's something that I've been having to work with and that's, you see this like when we were playing Silver the other night where you were not getting I was like, what am I saying?
Yeah.
Where am I? Where's what part are you not under? And that's something I'm working on, is that communication piece of when I'm explaining or detailing rules, and like someone's like, here's the rule book, but is there? Because it used to be like if someone asked for the rule book. Sorry, I'm stepping over you.
Oh no! I'm stepping on you.
But like someone would be asked for the rule book. I took it as like an insult, kind of, where it's like, are you doubting what I'm saying, kind of thing. And it's one of those like, well, I've read the rule book several times, so it's like, here, you can look for yourself. But to save you some time, what
ask me.
What did I say, or what specific piece? Because if so, also I could be wrong, but it's on page 4 if you want to. If I know exactly what you're looking for.
And that's what's hard, because I feel like no one at a gaming table of friends is there. Like, you're all friends for a reason. No one wants to be mean to you. Just sometimes people have different mindsets. So like you being like handing someone the rule book, they're being mean and like not mean, they're being rude and questioning your rules. And for me, when I ask for the rule book, it's because I'm like, okay, I've made a mistake every time I've made a turn, and it's always a different mistake. So I fix a mistake, and then I'm making a new rule, or I'm breaking a new rule, and then I'm making another mistake, and I'm breaking a new rule. And so I just want to read the rules so that I don't have to learn the game piecemeal. Like, I want to know all the rules so that I don't have to learn a new step every turn. Yeah, games are hard. Rule books are getting so long.
Yeah. And the thing is we're going back to, like, these are just, especially these times, none of us are wanting to be confrontational. It's just something that just subconsciously happens, and like that just part of your brain fires the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I kind of wanted to kind of pick up what Phil put down earlier, that, you know, we are speaking from experience where we have had in RPGs interparty conflict, and, you know, beyond the characters, the players having conflict themselves. And yeah, we've let people down. We've lost people at our gaming table. I want to be very transparent about that. That, you know, that things, we let them pass us by and we didn't deal with them until they snowballed and it was too late. So watch out, gamers. Really take stock of what's happening at your table and cultivate that awareness, so that maybe you can nip it in the bud sooner and solve these conflicts before they become too insurmountable.
If you're allowing the people who are the most confrontational to solve issues at your table, and they'll probably be the first ones to step up because they're primed and don't feel uncomfortable with conflict, it's not going to end as well as if you're someone who is a little more measured with the way that you speak to people. Not to say that being, like, okay with conflict is terrible. Like, I think that there's a place for people who aren't terrified of conflict, because sometimes that'll get in the way. But if you're trying to keep a friendship and keep a gaming table together, don't just let conflict happen.
Okay. So
yeah.
Unless, do any other comments?
It's so hard. If anyone in the comments wants to tell us how to do interpersonal relationships, tell us.
I'm going to offer one last point, and this is probably the only factual-based piece I will offer, because it has been in a class that I've been working on my MBA,
nice.
And one of the things
humble brag.
One of the things I've had to take is like a leadership class, and things about management and what managers versus leaders kind of thing. And one of the things they talk about is dealing with conflicts, and a lot of because we sort of shifted from that from harassment to conflict. It's in the same realm, but the reason why, and it goes back to talking, like I was talking earlier, where people like act maybe not necessarily how you're used to, like, well, they're a nice guy, but something like sets them off or something. Our brains are wired so that when we know something to be true, and we find something that we know to be true, like for in this case, like Arkham, like, I know this is what I believe to be Arkham, and you find data that is contrary to that core belief that you have, your brain will literally shut down, because it wants to protect itself and everything. This is why you see where, like, people taking defensive stances. It's a legit thing. You can seriously read up on it.
Yeah.
But what they offer is that the biggest way to overcome that is to simply point it out.
Yeah.
Is to say, like, ask somebody, it goes back to, this is just a game, where it's like, why are you being like, or why is this a big deal?
Yeah.
And it works, because I've had this happen in the workplace, where I've had somebody like yelling down my throat, and I'm yelling right back at them. And finally it just got to the place where I exploded and just was like, why are you yelling at me about this? I'm not even saying I believe this saying. I'm just saying that I'm just pointing out another issue. Why is this such a big deal?
Yeah.
And it gets people to think about it. It helps break that defensive reasoning bit, where you just point out, like, hey, you're acting like this, and I didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
What's up?
On workplace harassment, sorry someone yelled at you. That's some BS. But good job saying why.
That section of my career, like there was that whole class I did on leadership and stuff. I referenced that section of my career every single time we had one of these discussions.
It got you some good grades.
Just a lot of good talking points where it's like, oh, here's an example of what not to do in my own personal life.
But they changed math. I'm sorry.
Just talking about people talking about personal advice and talking about interpersonal relationship. That is something that I feel like should be we need an interpersonal relationships class in like high school.
I think that a lot of states are rewriting health to have a bigger section on relationships and healthy relationships.
Like the things I learned in some of those leadership and management, I feel like that just needs to be like core material in its own kind of class sort of thing. But I'm speaking high level stuff that'll probably take 20 years to happen.
Fingers crossed, though.
Yeah. All right. So this has been a long endeavor. We're almost hitting 2 hours on the recorded fame. So thanks to everyone who stayed with us, especially y'all in the chat room. Appreciate it for especially calling out and give us some counter arguments to stuff we're saying. If you are listening to this and have something you would like to add, versus like for if you feel comfortable sharing an incident you've had that maybe was a topic that we didn't cover, a specific thing, or if you've got a recommendation or want to point out something we said that maybe like, well, if you think you've got a counterpoint that you'd like to share, feedback@boardsandswords.com. Let me know if there's enough stuff. Maybe we'll do like we'll do like a follow-up or something if we need to have. I know I try and make this more of a humorous comedy-ish board game podcast, but these are serious topics. So and I'm willing to take a break from it if it means that somebody's getting some important information, or if they've got questions. If you've got questions, that's even better. I will forward probably all of the as well to both, because as a general rule, I just assume that I don't know much of anything and that people are smarter than me.
Good rule.
I feel like it's a great rule to have. Just assume you're the dumbest one in the room. And so if you've got questions, topics, anything you'd like to see, if you'd like to see this type of roundtable in another kind of room, because like I said, we could go, there's gatekeeping. We could have done this with gatekeeping. I could change up and get some better people on, and we could have the racial discussion as well.
Better people. Kidding.
More, yeah.
Well, and you could also do joyful stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just talking like, but I'm saying we covered the joyful. Like,
Chris likes. You said you like listening and therapeutic chit chat. So
I do like that. So feedback@boardsandswords. Specifically, I will forward any particular useful content to them, especially if you've got questions, because I probably won't know the answer to them.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't have a problem bringing, as long as they're willing to come back on to tell me how I'm wrong. Having Corey, and you know what? Honestly, I do want to get you and Jimmy on just to talk board games some, because like Philip doesn't play a lot of board games.
Philip.
Well, I mean, board games involve being in the same room most of the time.
I have Scythe on the computer. I'll lose to you at that. It's really hard on a computer. You can't see the board.
I will challenge you that I will lose to you on the computer.
Well, I'll challenge you that
it'll be a who can lose worse.
We're playing golf. We're just gonna play golf.
No, that's what it'll be. It'll be me, Corey, and Chris,
and Heather.
Corey and I'll just fight for second place.
It's gonna be a war of attrition.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Golf wise, you're just gonna see who can get the lowest score.
So that's what you want, the low score in golf.
That's what he meant.
He's calling me out. Better people. I have better things to say in that regard. How's that? Than me, like
people with lived experience that aren't us.
Better perspectives, or not. I don't know.
Fuller, rounder perspectives.
Different.
We're gonna be really good with synonyms and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, all I'll do, I plugged at the top, but I will say afterwards when I go off air, there was a lovely discussion having before the episode since I had streaming problems, and we probably may chit-chat a little bit afterwards. What were y'all talking about? I was too busy fiddling around with Twitch. What were y'all talking about
I don't know.
beforehand?
Someone in the chat just said that they're going to play board games with their mom in a week, and that's awesome. Have a good time. Moms are the best.
Heather was talking about some kind of book or something.
Oh, Parable of the Sower.
Jane Eyre, right?
Jane Eyre.
So yeah, if that interests you at all, you need to be checking out our Patreon because we recorded all of that, so it's going to go out to our patrons as bonus bit stuff. In the meantime, hey Philip, I don't have the show notes up, but why don't you hit the roll that beautiful bean footage?
And that is going to wrap up this week's episode. If you want to watch the show live, we record every other Sunday. boardsandswords.com/live. We got the scheduled links to all the channels. Check out boardsandswords.com, no/nothing, and you can check out everything we do. It's got the other podcast Chris mentioned, the Dirtbags of Holding. It's probably got links to all the other stuff we used to do before we started doing this all together. So check us out, and you're going to find us all there.
All right. Again, you've got comments and questions, probably a lot of questions, probably and a lot of comments. Feedback at boardsandswords.com. You could also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/boardsandswordspod. I'm also on Instagram, Boards and Swords Chris, Boards and Swords on Twitter, probably Boards and Swords or some version of it on most places. Corey, Heather, do y'all have any? Corey's got a really good Instagram. I will just say that. Like, she curates that feed and like all the stories. Like, I'm looking on stories and there's just all sorts of stuff.
I put up way too much shit on Instagram. I actually don't know what my Instagram name is. It'll be in the show notes.
Isn't it just Corey Hair up, but
it might have
spelled
been
Hair?
UP.
I think
That could be it. I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. Heather, do you have any that you want to share?
God. I'm super boring. I'm on Twitter and on Instagram solely to follow people. I don't post.
Fair.
Are there any Instagrams or Twitters that you would like to tell the people about?
Oh, God. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
They'll be in the show notes. That's my excuse.
It'll be somewhere in the show notes.
Yep.
I do the same thing Heather does. I just stalk a whole bunch of other awesome Twitters, but you can find me at Phil the Dirtbag.
Nice.
And I was making sure that wasn't going to end. And remember that we are a part of Punchboard Media with a bunch of, when I say like better people, across all types of different types of people. Race, gender, whatever. I'm trying to think of other ways to define people and I can't. But there's a whole wide, diverse group of people over at punchboardmedia.com. And so go check them out. And in the meantime, remember that every person, every gamer, every person has a story. And Beatle's got a good point. We could talk games, gatekeeping in Games Workshop, because there's a whole mess of stuff that's gone down with that. That could be a whole thing with IP and copyright issues and by itself. So
Does Game Workshop still have brick and mortars?
they do.
Oh.
There used to be one up in Bowie.
Oh, yeah. I used to go to that one. Anyway.
All right, that's our show. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Oh, before we leave the chat, we should say that when you were saying that there are different types of people, there are people who like cheese and people who don't like cheese, and someone in our chat does not like cheese.
What?
What? Good for you.
Lactose intolerant. I eat cheese.
My favorite one of those is there are 10 types of people in this world, those that know binary and those that don't.
Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah,
Also, it's totally okay if you don't like cheese. It's probably better for your heart health.
Your cholesterol is probably better than mine.
Hey,
Yeah,
my
that's
mother-in-law just entered the chat.
Hi.
I'm going to say hi as we sign off now.
You're
Hi,
gonna.
bye.
You don't have to like cheese, and you'll probably live, 8 to 10 years longer. But they're gonna be miserable and cheeseless.
Phil says that to me about meat on Facebook. Whenever that comes up once a year in my Facebook memories.
Oh, the thing with the bacon.
Yeah, like 10 sad baconless years.